But Sheila,
well, I went year 4 camp on Monday and Tuesday in Britain.
How was that?
It was just a delight. 9-year-olds are so wonderful.
Yeah.
And it was all about team building, and I watched them in the 2 days I was there go from not helping to actually like, oh, let me help you. But yeah, no, I mean, I should really, in a way, I suppose, if I'm going to say right about it, because it was fascinating. But I went because Jessie was not going to be allowed to go because of his erratic behaviour. And I said, well, I'm a qualified teacher, can I go? And they let me. And I think they were more worried about me than him, really. Because I'm a bit of a, do a lot of complaining at school. And he just blossomed and had a glorious time. And it was, he became with them normal, behaving properly, just, because he doesn't, and it's something to do with school that actually triggers this, because it's not what happens. And because it was in a different environment, so that was wonderful. And the other one is Zimbabwe, really, because we were there the year before last, and Marh is on the edge of the cyclone, and we got an email saying, we're okay, but I just was reading, and I don't know, I emailed again, so I don't know whether the repercussions are still happening, but the roof of the prison in Shelagh was blown off. So I didn't realise they were quite that close to it, actually, his fingers the time that. So, yeah, just getting that first hand from somebody and being there and know it and love it. Yeah, it's special.
Yeah, Rachael, are you?
Yeah, okay, yeah, although,
That's a good idea.
I don't, busy, because I've got to have an operation on my arm a week on Monday. So, it'll be alright, but, that's something I'm doing. I'm not relishing it.
No.
I did have this thought about asking the anaesthetist, what happens to I when you put me to sleep?
That's an interesting thing. Ask him, see what he says.
Because I suddenly thought, am I a product on the table as they just chop you about and all that sort of thing? So I managed to. It's not that funny.
No, I like the question.
Go.
Anyway. Oh, but the other verse, hold on, this is my living poster. I'm getting there. And this was, this has pushed me because I've got a deadline to go, I don't know what I'm going to be like the week after having an anaesthetic. So this is the I, we, us part, because I spent about 6 hours on the wiki page yesterday, and these are all the people that have contributed so far, and then these are my values that I've been working on, and then I've got a big board at home that I'm making another poster on, that meant that I had to include my old poster, which means that I don't actually have to do a new video, because the video is the same as it was when I first did it.
Good.
So that's
Excellent.
that's Jack's page.
Blank.
Blank. You noticed it's blank. The community bit that he wants everybody to contribute to, it's blank.
I'm coming to it.
So I'll give you a pen.
Go on, Robyn.
Yeah. Absolute joy for me is Make a Move. Just this week, particularly seeing Sarah and Katie just seem to be inches taller, having both done new things last week. So Sarah had to go and stand in for Michelle in Leeds doing a big business corporation thing for 7 days. And of course, I knew she could do it because she's been wonderful in groups recently. Confidence has grown again. So she was just saying, I was like, I had you guys with me all the time, and she was just brilliant. And so to cover her here in Bath, Katie stepped up. And Katie, hasn't been all that confident. She's brand new to Make a Move. And she was gorgeous too. And she did 2 groups, really successful. One of them was very pushing. This one woman who had been quite stoical and quiet, just dissolved in tears. And she was really late coming back this week. We thought she might not even come back, but she did say. So it was the last session this week, and we had 100% throughout turnout, which is never happened before here. and they just were so glowing. So that was really, really so nice, just so nice. And they've written loads of each of them. It's brilliant, that's good. And I have to say it, because otherwise they'll put me down. I finished my papers, all that stuff, that's right, it's up there. Yeah. And it's all right, it's come together, and I kind of feel that my paper, which we have to talk about, there's something in it that's important, I think, for the future of living theory. Something in it, I think. I don't quite know how it's going to go, because, but I think, anyway, so I'm quite pleased with that. But there's one other thing I'm going to get it in, and that is that this week, New Zealand, although it's bad news, I kind of wondered, suddenly as I was driving here, wondering why it's been in the news such a lot, New Zealand. Is it because it's a white, country and all the rest of it? Then I thought, no, because actually really it's a good news story. I mean, I know it's terrible what's happened, but I think why we are riveted, well, I know why I'm riveted, but why it's so riveting is because it's just so many signs of humanity there, which you don't often get in disasters. And that's not coming back in the same way quite from Mozambique. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that although it's a terrible story, I think it's also a good news story. I just thought about that and I thought, oh yeah, to work on what that all means. Does it make any sense?
Yeah, that was going to be why, and I forgot it, was actually the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
With her hijab, with paying for the funerals and with offering support, and support for the families, and saying she never wants to mention his name again. Which I've been been the same for years. Why do we keep giving publicity to people who want publicity?
Just call me Jacinda.
So it's
say Jacinda.
Yeah, she's such, I mean, the things we go around on Facebook saying this is leadership. And it's like kind of everybody taking note of this, the sort of gentle, I would say feminine, approach and
looking pretty haggard, I have to say, for a mother of a tiny baby.
Thought for the day today, Bishop, Rabbi. One of the head rabbis.
Oh, blue.
No, it wasn't him. He spoke about not mentioning the terrorists' names. Very powerfully, actually. We quoted Bible references to what Jesus said on the words. No, it's really good.
Oh, yeah.
Well, my buzz was on Tuesday, which is our regular can-do group, which is where all the kind of key people gather together every month for 6 weeks. And it was really good, and we've got now our self-employed with our staff, and a really good turnout of everyone. It was a really good meeting where we were talking about what we'd done and what we were planning to do and how it was going. And I ended up with that meeting feeling, we've arrived at a good place. And then I got an email afterwards from Jill Herrett, who's been with me on this right from the very beginning. And so she said, you ought to be really proud of this. So I felt really good.
My buzz is that you said about your proposals, but what's really been pleasing is that you put in a lot of proposals to Vera conference, and there's politics involved. But what I'm really, really pleased about is that Joy had her proposal accepted, and it's come at a time I think it's very important. She's going with the Adlarians to do the conference, so for once something's coming together for her. And I think it's really important that she's got some appreciation as an academic.
I thought you delayed.
No, this is the proposal for the conference. So some academics have actually said, we understand what and it looks really good. And they're turning down now 25% of the proposals that I think they're coming to. So I'm really pleased about that. And sometimes you just need the right thing at the right time. Which is everything about books.
I've got 2 or 3. One lunchtime today, Joy is coming for lunch with Robyn, only because Joy and Robyn, together with 3 other of the Adlarian Research Group, are going up to High Wycombe to present their ideas on Sunday. So they've got a scheme, they've got a plan, letting them have the camera so they can actually video it. And it's a real buzz that 5 people are going there to work on spirals with joy at a conference. Okay, so that's one buzz. The other is there, clearly. I do hope you'll get into this, and I'll put it right at the top of my website, because this is Robyn now, getting the papers, you know, and the communications together. Then this came through 2 days ago, which is that it's unusual to have 3 proposals, and I usually put 3 into conferences, and all 3 have been accepted. So I'll put these at the top of the Jack Whitehead's section. So what makes educational research educational? I put the proposal there that's been accepted. Then we've got introduction to developing educational knowledge through close to practice, this one. That's for a workshop. And then the one that I'm hoping you'll come into is the live streaming one, which is come and join us for a conversation on living educational theories with an alternative format set live stream session. So this is the first time we've allowed live streaming at a Bureau conference, and you can name the participants. Okay, so for the very first time you'll see that people are named in terms of their presentations, Swaroop, Rachael, India, and I'm hoping we'll be able to talk about that. Yeah, so that's one quick one. And then what I wanted very much just to go back to is this, that where William is saying he's really proud. If you go into the Action Research Net and then you just click on again the Living Theory Wiki, I didn't realise until last week, as I say, that if you go into any of these, for example on the Reds, say you go into Williams, you've got Creating William at the top there. And I had no idea that that was there. Do you know the Creating
I
William?
only get William.
Right. Yes. What? Oh, right. Well,
Or Sheila. I didn't get creating.
you don't get the
Sheila.
Creating Sheila,
No.
right? Okay. So if we go into, you see blank, 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 Sheila. Okay, Creating Sheila. Now, what I'm hoping is that because it is genuinely, you might need just to see it once to how easy it is. But if you type anything in here, it will come up. And then using these 2 things here, you can put in live links to anything. External link. All right, go on. Anyway, I just wanted to chat. And what I discovered last week was this, that supposing Sheila actually writes. Yeah? But what we can do
That's
then,
what?
yes,
Yeah.
we can go into discussion. Nobody's done this, including myself. Can you see discussion there at the top? Yeah?
Yeah.
So if you click on the discussion,
We'll have the
you get
discussion.
this.
This is the discussion thing.
yeah? Good. Yes, I shall do it. Definitely do
This
it.
is
I
the
will.
discussion thing.
Honestly do it. Creating Talk Sheila. Anyway, this one I'm just hoping that if you haven't got in there at the moment, and the red ones haven't, you'll go in there, and like with Rachel's invitation, you know, we can actually now start to create conversations and responding. So we can actually use this if we want to.
On mine it doesn't say creating talk Rachel.
Right.
It
Just goes.
just goes discussion, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, but anyway.
So that doesn't send an email to anybody. That just sits there.
That sits there.
Until somebody accesses it.
Yeah, and responds to it.
Yeah.
And if somebody responds,
Yeah.
I mean, do you have to keep looking at it every day
Yes,
to see
you
if
do.
someone's responded?
I think it's
Yeah, I
also-
think it's
I think there is an alert there, but I'm not sure.
We can have a look, William, just see if there is an alert. You know, because it's
It'd be
good.
nice to
Yeah, it would.
A bit like Valentine's Day, isn't it? And it's looking at post boxes and things. Everybody loves me.
Yeah, yes. But that's where I'm getting to, because these that are in black,
Blue.
blue, they will, yes, they've already posted.
So I see, so the naughty people are in
Yeah,
red.
that's
Yes.
The naughty ones are in red, exactly. You see, even Robyn, you see, hasn't he?
I wrote a whole page full,
Yeah, and then you
and then I
lost it.
came out, and at the bottom somewhere you have to save it, and I didn't.
Ah,
Like
failure.
this.
Like that,
Oh,
yeah.
you wrote
Save
it onto
button.
it without having it anywhere else.
Sorry?
You wrote it.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. I wrote it straight in. I suppose you could copy and paste
Yeah,
it.
that'd be wise.
Yeah,
Very wise.
very.
No, I
Actually,
needed
the
it.
top tip for Robyn.
It's like get this job done kind of thing.
Yeah,
That's,
no.
that's how one runs life, isn't it? Next, what's next?
What, no. But
Do
what
you have
Robyn's
to write about living theory?
No. No, this is you. This is Creating William.
Right.
We created Jack though.
Yeah, but it
Yes.
needs to do with
What's
different
that?
things.
Yes, it is. Yes. Okay,
It's
so,
not.
so
It is to do with living theory.
it is.
See, I worry about standards with this because that's going out there.
Yeah.
So I can't. Mine's rough and ready, and it's like unlikely to go be more than rough and ready. So I'm like,
What's wrong
is this?
with
They're going to look at this. This is not an academic piece.
that? Yeah.
No, but some-
No, it's just like a blog. What
does
do
that
blogs don't?
Well, it does matter
Well,
if it's up against people like people doing
But it's not
PhD.
competition. That's the bit that I don't quite get, the
What's that?
style of how to, and I don't mean style, because what I did was I took all those people, so
Yeah.
all the people, everybody that was in black, and everybody on the circle was
Yeah.
in black.
Yeah.
So what I did was I went through everybody's page, and I thought, there was far too much to read, so I just sat with the mindset going, what interests me out of this? And so I put a sentence for everybody's, or a little bit.
What tells them?
Well, starting at, if you go back to the list,
Hang on.
Just tell us.
Yeah.
well, because the first one I picked up was an ad.
Yeah.
Now, she then goes to her, you then go to her webpage.
Yeah.
So then you go to her webpage, and it was about war and life. And I suddenly thought, I remember reading something of hers following Moira's paper 2 years ago. So there's this link happening of how my understanding of living theory is growing over the last 2 years, and that I can start to see what's happening. But it was the fact that on my living poster I've got the transformational power of art. But she goes, look at the title, go back, there's the title of some of these, and it's Life in a War Zone, but there was Life in a Bunker. And I got what my understanding of that was.
That's
Can't
perfect.
put that. Stop
I
it.
think that was it. You didn't add.
Our life in the bomb shop.
Life in the bomb shelter. Well, I've got, in my writing that I'm getting ready to put, I've got what my life in the bomb shelter was like in photographs. And so, but clearly Annette has gone, she's done her research and she's now using art as her form of communication, a bit like Alan uses the artwork. But there's something else that was happening that when it came out, I thought, well, I've got to do. I was still on my clarifying remembrance as a value at the same time as doing this. So that was my contribution for me about my values. And I laughed at myself with my after last week we did the cabinet anthropomorphy. And so I created my own last week, which was a set of shells. Did I send you? I sent the set of shells that was blank, and I thought I really don't want to go into this because I'm going to find stuff that I don't want to find. So it was like going into early recollections and going, I don't want to go there. Really don't want to go there. And I thought now I've got to. Well, now I've got 6 more pictures of how this cabinet is now different. But I was sifting through this stuff, and I thought, I'm going to find stuff I don't want to find. Then I thought I found stuff that I do want to find. And the 2 things that were of use, there was my leaving the RAF letter, and the thinking behind it, which I thought, oh, that's quite interesting to review 20 years later. And that showed the difference between my thoughts and what I actually submitted to then resign. But the other thing I found was a prize-winning essay, which was Harnessing the Power of Knowledge. And it was all about how should UK services prepare for 21st century operations, and it was about knowledge dominance and knowledge applications, and it made me question what is knowledge. Now, there's somebody on here asked what is knowledge, and they felt really rubbish when they didn't understand what is knowledge. And then I think there was a little bit that I found in Jackie's that I thought one of her posts is the development of a culture for improving learning rests upon supporting the knowledge creating capacity in each individual in the system. And I thought if I compare with that, this is knowledge dominance and how it's shared and not shared between the US and the UK, and what knowledge is in a product form, but nothing to do with knowledge creation. And so this was all about knowledge creation, and I started to feel that maybe what it was to be a knowledge creator, but that's also a very vulnerable place. because it just looks like this at the moment, and this is my process of going through, and I was thinking, well, I've got to do the story, you know, my backstory, that, is it all choice? No,
Yeah, with culture.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all that cultural stuff, and I thought, well, it's all a big piece of work, but then there has to be there's a method going on somewhere, and I've got to create this method so that I can put this stuff through, and I don't know anything about methodology, so I've got to start on that. But what was kind of interesting was that everything kept coming, so, and that started me off on the war, and obviously I have a specific resonance with war, but then there was Ben and prisons, and then that led me to your thinking last week when you said, is Patrick McGee a thug looking for a cause? And then I thought, what does that mean when I joined the Air Force? And, you know, from a violence point of view, then I was, each time I looked in, there was something else, like just to go and look down a little rabbit hole to pull out what I wanted to do, what was relevant for me. And there was this, I'd read your, beginning to look into your paper at the beginning of the week, and by the time I got to this, I'd forgotten that, but there's always the reference to Margaret, because of Adnarian, and her responsibility and responsibility, the two separate things, and then can community feeling and social interest, and she says that she puts social interest as self-care. I think there was something around that, and that was the bit that then I was starting to go, I don't quite get what the difference between community, well I think I know, but I didn't know what social interest was. But then I was, for some reason, one of the other links sent me to Jason doing Loving Kindness, and I suddenly, my heels went in, and it was like a horse refusing to do a jump over a fence, and I thought I was resonating with him from a coaching perspective, and I could see what he was doing is what I used to do and what I mustn't do if I want to move into educational work instead of coaching work. So I kind of had to put that quietly to one side, but what it did do was it then sent me into the link of how he created his paper and the peer review process. So I then went through how all that was worked, which is also a link which is all part of how living theorists, grown-up living theorists I'll call you, those who have all got the support other people who are coming through. And so it then, I think one of the things that linked to Marie, your bit, was that there was democratic evaluation. I thought, I really don't understand that, but it feels important. But what always got to me was your work at Brilsey and this little, your pamphlet that you did with the young researchers at Brilsey. And I thought, all of a sudden, it started to come out. I've got natural inclusion at the bottom, because this comes out like a tree. So all the people on the top are the fruits of the tree, and at the bottom there's all the natural inclusion community who are in the roots and in the ground. And I've put, I call the vitality of the intangible presence of my values loving kindness. And that's what I want to contribute to the 13th, which is that culture of loving kindness, which is changing the environment, the learning environment, from what I've been used to something that's more loving and kind. And thinking of the two people from Mongolia, I was thinking, better go and work out how to pronounce their names, because we can't hear. So I went on to that, and then I was really fascinated about their music culture and how different that is, which then linked out to my living posters. So I thought, I'm really getting into this, and I enjoy it, and I have to know how to put it down. And so every time I have to then just put it all back together again and just put it into a bag and go, okay, that's fine, because it can become sort of a bit consuming.
Self-care. that was the conclusion I finally on the last day got to, that that's what this is all about.
Self-care.
At mine, yeah, that page. So if you read the last page, if you like, maybe 2 pages, of the latest version, which is actually on that website now, under Spirals, an example. That's what I come to. I don't build it any because I just came to it. Obviously, when I work on this paper a bit more, that about social interest or community feeling, being that sort of care. Well, yeah, sorry, I interrupted, but your story is much bigger than that. What you're talking about.
Well, no, because it's really important to be,
Yeah.
because the
Yeah.
self-care,
Yeah.
putting it down,
Yeah,
whatever self-care means,
yeah,
and whatever it's creating that breathing space
yeah,
so that my head can process what I've just done.
yeah.
So I think I was just kind of a bit obsessed because I've heard about the date for this operation. I thought, oh, I've got to get this done. So sort of spent probably about 6 hours with it yesterday and felt a bit full. So I felt like an apple on a tree that was just about, it was going a bit rotten. It was just going to go fall to the floor. And it's that thing that I needed to then go and do the rest so that my brain can process what I've done and I know what the next step is.
Apples fall to the floor when they're ready to, when they're
Oh,
ripe.
that's a good point.
Yeah, but sometimes they hang on, don't they? They go a bit mushy.
So it's choosing the right moment.
It's choosing the right moment. So, to follow your question, does the wind come?
When the change comes.
Yeah,
And the change comes.
yeah.
And then somebody, human or otherwise,
Just like
picks it up and eats it. And the seeds find their way to the soil out.
Can we look at, first of all, Sonia sends her apologies, and she's with Jason in Cumbria because they've got his 3-day leadership seminar, so she should be here next Friday. Jason, he's got a blog, and he's posted something last week about loving kindness. I went into it and I had to say, look, Jason, I'm sorry, but what you've actually said clarifies your meaning. It doesn't at all. There's no way that I could move from what he was claiming, from the data. So I'm hoping he's going to work on how does he communicate.
Is Jason one of our group?
Jason is on Sunday evenings. He's doing his doctorate. Marie's one of his supervisors at Cumbria, and he's got a whole blog page now, and he's with Sonia. But it was the loving kindness because it connects with what what Rachael is working on, and also Liz Campbell, who's just got her doctorate in Canada, and Liz has also been focusing on loving kindness.
Jason's quite a good illustration, I think, of what I was trying to say to you about just what it is, because what he's done is just offer with and saying, you've got any ideas that would help you or help me? But it's not a case of putting up something that looks like somebody else's content. It's actually just not a bit like a blog, you're just sharing where you are. You're not putting up just pages.
I'd be really interested, you stopped, when you were talking about, when you read his site, you realised that what he was talking about, what he was describing in loving kindness, maybe to say, was where you realised that's not where I want to be. And that would be useful to think that through. I don't know whether that's something you can do.
It comes back to when I left the Air Force. There was something inside me that said, I don't want this anymore. So whatever this was, there was something. So what I've been focusing on with my values is what was it inside that gave me the courage, the determination to stand up to this big organisation and say, I want out of here, and I know what the sacrifice is going to be, but I've got to get out, and I've got to get out intact and as graciously as possible. And it wasn't easy to get out.
Is that the living contradiction? That's how I would define living contradiction. Where you get suddenly a point where you just, I am not comfortable with what is happening or how I'm feeling.
And so the thing with the contradiction is not to allow the contradiction to get that big. So I was really in it up to here, and how did I get out of when you're immersed in a culture, which is when you're immersed in a culture when you've been put in it and you don't realise it. So a child is born into a culture. I was born into that culture that said that it was a great thing to go and do. Now, when you put at the side of it, and my thinking process there is, was I a thug looking for a cause? I have to question that. So that's what I've done in the last week. Was I a thug? No, I was naively unaware because of the culture that I was in. Now, I understood that, but then having realised what it, having experienced what that culture does, there was the humanity bit that said you can't do this anymore, but I didn't realise that was what was being set inside. And so going into that, it was what was behind that, that was the goodness part of it, that was pushing me. So when Jack, I think it's, has the phrase, somebody who hadn't got the determination to have done what you did, that was the pushing through to say, I'm not putting up with this anymore. But there's this, it isn't an anger at the time, there's a clarity and a focus that just says, I'm going here. And there's a calmness. And then it's taken the last 18 years to kind of pull all that out, but what I did was then going back, the first thing I did when I left to try and understand where I was going to go next was I then went and did NLP, which was a double-edged sword, and this is why I think I'm struggling perhaps with Jason, well not struggling, but there's a contradiction with something that's making me go like this, because I realised that NLP would help me. I used it specifically to help me unlearn what I'd learnt in the Air Force. So it was an unlearning tool, but it was quite an unusual way to be using NLP because most people are going into coaching and personal development, and it was they were always on about authenticity and that sort of thing, and it just didn't. And when I just couldn't find an authenticity through NLP, but what I did have was an extraordinarily, I still revere him as a teacher because he said, be careful how you use these tools. And he made us check the lineage, which made me go to Bateson, which is why I then put aside NLP and then went to focus on Bateson's work, because there's part of me also doesn't want to be associated with NLP. I know what it can do when people, in selling and all that sort of stuff, when you can get it into the, unpleasant areas. But it was used in coaching, and when there was this coaching thing, again, I was getting this same block that was a really block of, it was not, I'm not going there, it was I'm not going there, but it's not my place to go there. So it's almost like a therapeutic where coaching and counselling and therapy starts to intersect. Whatever it was, this loving kindness inside me said it's not good for either me or the other person to inquire any further in this conversation. And that's what I learnt in that why I never went to be a professional coach and all that sort of thing, because this is what's driving my inquiry now, because I knew that wasn't appropriate for me.
That's a quick question. It's just that you mentioned there conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm just really curious about how we might show that we are engaged, because it's a breakfast cafe conversation in the here and now, how we might combine within conversation. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
For example, I'm really fascinated by what it is you do, and also do with Cambridge Human Action Network. Now, how can we support that notion of conversation so you feel that what you're doing is being responded to? So this is why I'm hoping we can possibly use this space there for you to feel that what it is you're doing, and that with William and Ellie, within the Action Network. So that conversation seems to me to be really important.
And we have a conversation, and then how do you get a conversation onto a website?
Yeah.
And that was the thing that our group is missing because we don't have a single voice, because you can't do it.
No, that's right. So,
Well, because there's no, it's there, it's forever, and I keep wanting to go back and tweak it because your learning changes constantly. So having it and there's something about it.
well, you can. I mean, you kind of got an edit. You've got anyway,
okay,
so you can modify.
But do I really want to do it publicly? I mean,
And do I really want to put this on?
Me having
I
this-
don't want to put this on publicly. You know, and that's the thing that I think there's a step that doesn't include, about the wiki, that doesn't include, it's not inclusive yet.
I've just been while you've been talking, you may or may not have noticed, I've been writing my little book. And writing what you were saying and what the topic is here, and what does it mean in terms of the way I think and what I've been doing. And what, if you like, my living theory is that primarily it has to do with action rather than talking or writing. It is an action, but the writing, anyway, so living theory expressed as action, but where does that action come from? And it feels like it comes from a framework. It doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It happens emerging out of a framework of some sort. And I put a metaphor here which I think for me gets it. It's whether action or ideas or a conviction that you have to move in a certain direction, does it come down onto you from the sky or does it bubble up from the soil? Now, that means something to me because both Rachael and I, and you may all be able to identify with this, spent a lot of our lives having instructions coming down from the sky, from the senior command, from what the RAF says you have to do and how you have to do it. Or does it bubble up from the soil? And I see from the soil the substance of community and people. For me, overwhelmingly, it needs to come up from the soil. And I got fed up to the high teeth, is it? Or the back teeth? Back teeth. Back teeth.
With the doctor.
I'm not a dentist. Being told what to do and how to do it. And I can't cope with that.
But isn't
There's something about it coming up from the soil, for me. There's something about it coming up from the soil, and then there's this sort of, as it comes up through, there's a realisation that cannot flourish in the environment that you're in. So that has to change. That's what happened for me. It's like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And so I have to leave it. You know,
Yes.
that's the thing. So
That's the
carry
Ministry
on.
of Defence.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? Another top-down organisation.
I think for me, because I think probably we all, because I was in education, then the Home Office, and we've all got that top-downness. But I think what used to happen to me, I was always the person who was doing the wrong thing, being the rebel and being told off. Didn't fit into any of those environments.
And loved
I probably
it.
still don't.
And
It's a kind of an impulse
Yeah.
to actually, and what I'm seeing, what you're saying as, is that you get all the rules, you get all the training, you become the person who's got that skill, experience, teacher, doctor, whatever it is, and then as you go through your practice, you come across the living contradictions, which is where it doesn't work. It doesn't work for these kids. You know, these children are suffering. These children not being given equal opportunities, etc., etc. And the different sensitivities and the focuses that you have from coming from your environment, your history, whatever it is. And that's where you kind of go, and I go, no, that's not right. And I'd sort of start standing up and trying to change it and get into trouble, and you know, and then finally leaving the Home Office because of the whole Muslims and terrorism thing. because I just couldn't stay there another day. I'm just putting together, it's about what you bring to it from your experience of being that person and not accepting. Some people just go along and do everything right and everything they're told, and they love it. They love being within that kind of framework. And I just kept popping out of it in all directions, like, no, that's not, I have to, no, I'm going to do something. And look at me now.
It's interesting. At least, I think the five of us sitting around here, I can't speak for Marie or Jack, but I'm getting positive noises from Jack, that there's something about this need for a bubbling up kind of understanding of the world that gels with living theory.
Yeah, it does, but also, if you just listen very carefully to William's logic, okay, so just listen where William set it up in terms of either or. Do you remember that when William was talking about it's either coming down from there or it's bubbling up? Okay, now actually it's both. You know, what she was
balance right.
Yeah.
I haven't put that reference in, but it'll come in when we do.
Okay, but it feels that it's really important because William also talked about a framework, right? Now, in technical language, if you take a framework as what's known as a self-regulating transformatory whole, right? A self-regulating transformatory whole. This is a framework. Framework. W-H-O-L-E. Now, a framework, if you like, is something which can be rigid. Now, it's really important, this, I think, because in 1976, this guy Cossack said, look, if you treat structures as literally transitory, in other words, we all need structures to make sense, but we're in a constant process of transformation and change, where the structures should be seen as transition structures, which are always in a process of transformation. Now, that's what I'm hearing. If William would just shift that logic away from the either or into the process which he lives, we'll have, go on.
I think you have to, well, I have had to push the top down way in order to discover myself. But actually, of course you do. So if you pursue this bottom up, top down thing in terms of the environment, you have the soil and what goes on in soil and the networks of fungi. Amazing things, the way the substance of the planet operates. It won't do any of that unless it rains, without the sun, without the storm, which is sometimes terrible, like it has been. So yes, you do. But if you live your life being made only to look at the sky, then you're done for.
Exactly. Yeah. So can we get to it? Creating William.
I might put this on my page.
Well, you really do, William.
That's really
it was. You know, that is where we need, I think, creating William, which we can then engage with in the discussion, and we can feel part of a conversation which is now taking place in a different forum. Anyway, I'm hoping you will, William, because it's really important we don't lose it.
You'll have to tell me how to get into it.
Yeah, I will.
Send me a link or something.
No, look, sorry, could I just do that now? So
several emails.
Yeah,
Sent
look,
I'm sure it's been said lots of times.
now, if you'll go into the actionresearch.net, which is that, you just go into actionresearch.net.
Right.
Now, on the right-hand side, the what's new, you just browse down to the Living Theory Wiki. You got it there? On the right-hand side there, the Living Theory Wiki. If you click on that, that's where you are. So you just browse down that page to your name, which is William, and there's Sheila. We've also got Rachel there. But yeah. So you're going to just click on William, and there you are. Now you can actually type in anything here.
But you need to log in, and you had to send a password.
Right. So if you're asked to log in the very first time you use it, yours will be William, and it's a capital W for your name. Everybody's got the same kind of name or password. So it's, Julia, J.
You
Huh?
want to put this on the video?
How do you mean?
Well, this is being video.
Right. So what's go on?
Well, you want everybody to know how to create passwords.
Yes.
It's not the cleverest thing to do.
Right. Okay.
It's coming from the top down.
It's your first name, right? Your first name. And your password was just got a 1 after it. So you're, yeah?
So
You've
the
got an email
username is
from
my
the-
first name,
Just say
Yeah.
that you're sending
and the
Yeah.
password is
Stop putting it around.
William.
Or,
You see, that's the, I did with the structures wrong.
Oh.
Structures wrong.
But it's about to change.
go on.
But just my friend was saying that she was growing her sweet peas from seedlings this time, and she saw how the seed bursts out of its pod, and what happens is it kind of bursts out in a sort of spiralling motion. It's like it gets too big, for the husk, and then it'll go ping, and then it's out into the soil and off it goes. And there's something about that kind of like spiral
Releasing.
releasing. It's like it's got too big for
Have you
its.
ever seen Himalayan balsam?
No.
That is extraordinary. You
It's
just
like-
touch it and the whole thing is this extraordinary twist and you're left with this beautiful hairy pod and apparently 1,000 seeds just
Wow.
go off and
It's
it's,
a big-
it's identifiable menace.
It's a bit too clever, yeah, it becomes a menace.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very distracting, but it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It does seem that I get it, but we're still in the metaphor.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're still in the metaphor. So in the soil there's a worm that says I can't do this, and then there's a bird that says I can fly. Somehow we've got to get from being a worm to a bird.
It's a good thing being a worm. You're a real survivor if you're a worm.
Exactly.
You can multiply.
And
forever
what
as
does
a worm.
and what does exactly and what does the worm do? It just keeps going, doesn't
It
it?
keeps
Yeah.
feeding the bird.
Eats and poos.
Exactly. But there needs to be this communication between the worm and the bird, because the bird actually needs to eat the worm, doesn't it? Yeah. So you've got all that going on, and you can make these, you can make a story. But that's exactly what.
I don't mind being a worm.
No, but
Yeah, yeah,
but if to go back to the mushrooms, that's exactly why living natural inclusion is the next level down. So that we get out of this metaphoric thinking, because there's enough, there's clean language and all that sort of thing that can deal with the metaphors that we change and da 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 da. But is that article going to be published?
What article?
Alan's article in your journal?
I think so.
Yeah, because then that takes to the next. So what we can then, I
Far as I know.
can,
Far
yeah.
as I know.
So then you can then move to that whole thing. So the structure is a structure is a self-regulating, transformative whole.
So if you think of structure,
Which is transitory.
yeah,
And the structure is transitional.
well, no, he's saying, and I agree, but treat the structure as what he called a transition structure. In other
Yeah.
words, don't allow it to impose this rigid
To
structure.
calcify.
That's right, and hold you as something which is literally yeah,
And that's the difference between a whole,
Yeah.
as in
yeah, that's right.
whole, and a
A
whole.
hole, yes, very much
Because
so.
The worm just
Yeah.
keeps
In the hole, which is,
Yeah,
Alan's
keeps-
point. But can I ask, what I'm curious about, this sense of the dialogic, the conversational, is what, like you've got creating Julia there, right? And each one, you've got creating Sheila, creating William. There's something, I think, that even if you're a bit stuck and not sure how to do it, we can actually work on this, so it feels easy to you to actually just add something. But it's just trying to bring something in there that you feel literally is representative of the values that you are really seeking to live as fully as possible, so that we can engage with it. Anyway, that's what I'm hoping you will do. And we've got weeks, there's no pressure at all on this, but it would be
My
nice.
question as I'm talking is saying, do I want to?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
don't have to go public.
Yeah.
This is the thing, right?
Yeah.
I don't think
It is
it's public
public
comment.
Sorry,
Everybody
go on.
has, yeah, it is. Everybody has their own personalities and how they want to be in the world and how they want to present themselves. And there's, yeah,
Is there any way
Yes,
to begin
It
it?
feels a bit like a top structure coming down.
Yes.
no, but you're,
who's it for?
That's
Why am
where
I
I've
doing
got
that
to.
publicly?
I do all this
Yeah.
work and then I go, oh,
It has
you're
been really
same old,
good.
same old.
But
They're asking too much of just one. This is, the wiki is just one platform, and there's a limit to what it's a limit. Like a pencil can only do one thing. You want to do something else, and get a pen as well. So you could, if you want to keep things private, just for a few people here, is put a link to your own site, and on your own site you can give people a password, those people that you want to see, stuff that you want to privately engage with, you do it that way.
Is there any way at the front here?
Yeah.
I don't know how you can do stuff on here, but it's like, I said this last week, I have no idea who these people are. I don't have the time to click on them to see whether it's
Yeah.
something that's going to be my bag to read. Is there
It's
any
a bit
way
random,
you
though,
can...
just
Well,
people
that's what
happen
I
to
did
turn up.
yesterday. That's what
Well,
I did yesterday, and you haven't got time.
No,
Yeah, I've got time to
won't
do it.
have time. So is there any way, like our living posters,
Hold on, what's
that
important?
you can hang on, that you can actually put on just a little kind of, a taste of what people are talking about? Is there any way that could happen? Somewhere that you can actually alter. It doesn't have to be on that list, but
So
if
can I
you're
ask,
allowed to put something in.
So can I ask, if for example we clicked on Catriona, right now, the Neary group, this is the Irish, there are 5 Irish women that have all got their living theory doctorates. 4 of them have created this one in Ireland, and I just mentioned this on the 13th of April, when we're meeting, they're actually meeting in the Republic of Ireland with their group, and I was hoping to bring them in through Skype, just for 5 minutes, so we can introduce. Now, if I put at the top there the link to Catriona's poster,
Do it the other way around.
or the other way, what were you
You
thinking?
should do what it is that you want.
What's that?
Well, it was the problem with how do you go
Do
from
you
a
know
half
who you want to
dozen-
read?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
then you could put on the living posters.
I see.
You could
This.
go in and put a link on all
To
those
this.
people. If we've got
What I got from Catriona was the value of relationship in learning. That's what I took out of her thing
Yeah,
for
yeah,
me.
very much.
It's about relationship.
Yeah.
So relationship is the important thing for me, and so I'd like to ask, I was just about to say that, and you said hold on. So I ask you, is relationship what's important for you? Because are you going to come on the 13th? And if so, if I know what's important for you, that's included in somehow in the soil of the culture that we create for the conversation that then includes the other people, that then this grows.
Yes, it's one of the things I've tried to think about with the living posters, is how do you want to do then that's why you have keywords. So if everybody just sort of said 4 or 5, if it's a relationship, then it means you can navigate far more easily. That might be the other way around. It's the same problem that scaling up, if you like.
So, yeah. So Julia and William, if I drop you an email, as I said, you feel under a bit of pressure, but it's like the creating William. If I felt that you knew how to do it, you don't have to do it, but it would be nice to know that I got you in there.
Okay, yes.
Okay? Good. They got it. Good. Okay. Going. Great.
Just like say, in the relationship between Jack and Moira and Jackie, they called you the brute.
The what?
The brute.
The brute.
He's a brute.
Hang on.
Don't come out yet, Jack.
Yeah, hang on. Shut down.
Don't come
No,
out.
no. It's not shut down.
Don't shut the whole thing down there.
Okay.
No, where is
Is
it?
this something we could do with over lunch?
So, no.
I'm really pressed.
Go on.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Why is that?
Well, because
Okay.
we go down
No, that's what I want. That's all you do.
Yeah.
long enough to get some sort of
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Just one tricky thing.
Yeah.
Is this is the one. What? So when you plug that in, don't take it out. Because I need to know this because I'm trying to work it and I can't make it work.
Yeah.
When you plug this in,
Yeah.
what is it that you do?
HDMI.
Yeah, but when you plug this one in,
Yeah.
what is
Do
it
you have an
that
apple or
you
not?
do? Yeah. What is it that you do? I've forgotten. I did it last year. I can't remember.
To what?
What do you do on system preferences to
Yeah.
make sure you link to that?
Well, it should automatically come forward.
Oh, I can see it's changed.
Yeah, it should automatically do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if it
But if
doesn't,
you go into system preferences, and then into displays,
yeah, and arrangement.
can you see arrangement? So, can you see where those
Yeah.
are together?
And then mirror.
Yeah, so there's mirror,
Yeah.
and you just bring those together.
Oh, you have to bring them together?
Yes.
Ah.
And then it mirrors it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah?
Yeah,
So we
that's
go
right.
with it, yeah.
Yes,
Good?
thank you. That's all I
Okay.
needed to know.
Good?
And the other thing is, because of those videos, the others aren't confident about presentation, especially where it moves of herself in the world, and all those videos on this. Can you just hold off until I've seen them? And if they really don't want these videos to the public, I'll put them off in
Well, all
a
you
private
do,
time.
yeah, all you do is just click
But
price.
I'd like it much as
Yeah, I agree.
to be public.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it's you know, on your website it goes worldwide, so people in Mongolia might be there, people who are
Yeah, okay.
dodgy might
Yeah.
look at it,
Yeah.
and they're really worried about security and stuff like that. But can you just hold off just until
What am I holding off on?
not your Spanglefish on actionresearch.net yet? You can put the
Oh, no, your website's that. It's Fungalfish, isn't it? So I was going to put you on there, so you don't want it
not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why you want to.
Yeah, good.
But other people involved here.
I was going to do that today, so it's
I know,
15
that's
cents.
why I said yeah, it's been great. And actually, I can really see the process of develop and grow. It's just really, really nice.
Oh, phenomenal.
I mean, to get through all everybody's site and analyse it like that, it's amazing.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
But it's also then,
Did you say you were going to lead us there?
yes.
Because
Do you know what to do?
because mine is, I struggle with it, and Kip said, for God's sake, don't take the blooming thing, just do it on your phone.